Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Great to have you with us on the program. Website thisweekinamerica.us. Graeme Cowan is the author of Back from the Brink, True Stories and Practical Help for Overcoming Depression and Bipolar Disorder. He is a speaker who helps people build their resilience, well-being, and performance, despite spending most of his career as a senior executive in Sydney, Australia, with organizations like Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and A.T. Kearney. Graeme had struggled with depression for more than 20 years. He reemerged with not just a best-selling Australian book series to his name, but a new attitude towards the way individuals approach recovery. And he's with us on This Week in America. Graeme Cowan. Graeme, welcome to the program. It is great to have you with us.
Lovely to be with you, Rick.
Coming to us from Australia on the program today. I really appreciate you getting up literally in the middle of the night to be with us on the program here. A fascinating career. I talk about the success you had as a business executive. Let's go back and talk about that, because I'm sure people on the outside would look and go, that Graeme's got it together. He's got a great job. Things are going together for him. When did you realize that it was not just stress, it was depression that you were feeling?
Well, when I look back, I probably had my first episode when I was 20, when I was at university, but I really didn't know what it was back then. And I had a couple of other episodes, but largely were under control. I had some sort of treatment, but not a huge amount. But when I guess this really huge epic in 2000, I was the joint managing director of an executive search firm that specialised in e-commerce. And I don't know if you recall, but back in March 10, 2000, which happened to be my birthday, was the great tech crash. And that's when really everything changed. We were really busy up to then. We had a team which was really working hard, and we were just working exclusively in finding people and leaders for the new and emerging e-commerce industry. And suddenly the phone stopped ringing, business stopped coming in, and I felt a huge responsibility. And probably after about 2 or 3 weeks, I really began not sleeping well. I was up, I'd wake up really, really early. Like, I'm always an early riser, but I'm waking up really early,
Yes.
Not being able to take to sleep. And then eventually, it led into this sort of full-blown depression. And I think depression is where it happens every single day. You just have this overwhelming blackness, but you're trying to put on a positive front to the outside world, and that's incredibly tiring.
Well, yeah, and in fact, a question, when you talk about this, sometimes people go, I can't tell whether it's stress or whether it's actually depression. How do you tell that you're actually suffering from depression?
Well, they say that, that the clinicians say that if you have 3 or 4 of these every day for 10 days, well, that's then depression. So things like, changed sleep patterns, things like, really low mood, things like, just a black outlook on the world, things like low libido, losing your appetite. If you have 3 or 4 of those every day for about 10 days, that's when it's officially diagnosed as depression.
Graeme Cowan, our guest on the program, his book is Back from the Brink. His website is very simple. It's IamBackFromTheBrink.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to Graeme's book. The book is available all across the U.S. and all across the world. So you go through several years where you were being treated and trying to get some answers, get your life back together. July 24th, 2004, it actually gets to the point of writing a suicide note. Talk about that, how you get to that point where you've decided this isn't worth it anymore.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing, because I've actually had 4 suicide attempts, and it's something. The first time was probably 10 years before 2004, but it was very spontaneous and very quick to decide. But when I'd actually had a diagnosis of depression, and I knew that I'd got over it before, I kept on thinking that I would eventually get out of it and just had to persist. But from 2000 to 2004, I was depressed every day and really felt so bad that I couldn't imagine going on. At that stage, my marriage had broken down, I lost my job, was estranged from my kids, and I was just 110% 100% convinced that I wouldn't get better. It really was that dark and bleak. And that's really one of the big messages that I'd like to convey to your audience is that, no matter how bad it is, you can come back to the brink. And I'm living proof of that. I went through what my psychiatrist described was the worst episode of depression he'd ever treated. I tried 23 different medications. I had ECT or shock therapy on 20 occasions, hospitalized 4 times, 4 suicide attempts. And when you're in that space, it just seems like it's such a black hole that you can't ever imagine coming out of it. But you can. And, it was a slow recovery, and it certainly didn't happen overnight. But, I now lead a really fulfilling and happy life. I'm very, very fortunate.
The obvious question is, how did you do it? But that's really simple. You mentioned that basically it was small steps. It took a while to get to that point. What is the first step that you took? Because maybe there are people who are listening and watching that feel they're almost to the point, or to the point that you were, that need to find that first step. You don't go from I'm writing a suicide note to total recovery. There's a first step you have to take there. After you finished writing that suicide note in July of 2004, what was it that made you think maybe there is help for me out there? What's that first step that you took?
Well, I did actually make an attempt. I ended up in hospital, and I woke up, to see my loved ones around me, and that was very confronting, actually. Because I just really didn't want to be there, so that was really confronting. And I think probably for me, and there's a few things involved, but I'll talk about the important ones. I think one of the first thing is to seek expert help. And one of the things that people don't know is that there are many, many primary physicians out there, but not a lot of them have great expertise in mental health. And I think getting to a good one of those is a really, really important first step. And when you're depressed, you don't really feel that motivated to find someone. And so that's where a loved one can often help. They can, do the research and find out people who are good. And the ways you can find out is, ask friends and family who have been through a similar experience if they've found someone who's good. You can also go to websites like the Depression and Bipolar Alliance, which is a non-profit in Chicago, and they have a listing of doctors and psychologists that specialize in that area. So that's another way. So getting to that good basic help, because the primary physician, a good one of those, can refer you also to a good psychologist or a good psychiatrist if necessary. And so getting that basic help in place is a really important component. The second thing, and I can't stress how important this is to start exercising regularly. When we're depressed, we just feel like disappearing under the blankets and not getting out. But actually, even just walking for 15 minutes and gradually building that up every day, building it up to probably 30 minutes or even 45 minutes can make the biggest difference. It really can. And it can really turn things around. And the third thing, I think, is getting emotional support around you, compassion, actually telling people, loved ones, because when I was depressed, a lot of men are like this in particular, I just went into my shell and didn't really share what was going on. And so, if you can have just 2 or 3 people that will support you and just give you reassurance and maybe go for a walk with you regularly or just catch up regularly, getting that emotional support around you can make a big difference. And then the other key plank is working. I wasn't working and I didn't feel ready for paid work, but what I did was to start to volunteer, and that made a huge difference because I had a reason to get out of the house. I had a reason to interact with other people. I had a reason to make a contribution and get back in society almost. And that turned out to be a really, really good transition. And then, the final thing was really deciding to write that book. And the book was a really important part of my recovery.
With us on This Week in America, Graeme Cowan. He is the author of the book Back from the Brink, True Stories and Practical Help for Overcoming Depression and Bipolar Disorder. The website is very simple, IamBackFromTheBrink.com. Graeme Cowan, our guest on the program. You go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly. The book is Back from the Brink, True Stories and Practical Help for Overcoming Depression and Bipolar Disorder. The foreword for the book is written by Glenn Close. You've got some names that we would remember talking in the book, people that have gone through similar situations. Patrick Kennedy, Tricia Goddard, who's been a guest on this program before. So this is something you'd almost think of people that are famous and successful and wealthy, they don't have problems. It's just us because I can't figure out how to balance the checkbook at the end of the month. Literally, it can happen to anybody, can't it?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to get some high-profile people on there, just to just show that, it doesn't discriminate. And one of the things I do in my audience when I talk, Rick, is to ask people to raise their hands if they know someone close to them, either at work or in their home life, who's been touched by depression or an anxiety disorder. And always between 70 and 90% of the audience raise their hands. It just touches us all so profoundly. And I think one of the things that is really important, and you picked up on this, is just taking little steps. And one of the things I did was to put together it's a free 30-day mood boost program, and you can sign up on my website, which is what you mentioned, which is IamBackFromTheBrink.com. And people get one email per day with a simple story and an idea of what they can do that will make a difference. And one of the really heartwarming things for me is that I ask people to test their mood on the first day and the 30th day. And 73% of those that take action report their mood has improved over that period. So, it is just little steps that can make a big difference when people are really struggling.
It's interesting. You talk about we get into trouble sometimes, and it's pretty easy to do. We compare ourselves to others. They have a better family relationship. They have more grandchildren. The grandchildren are closer than our grandchildren are. Their cars are nicer. Their homes are bigger. And you say maybe we need a social media diet. Talk about that, because as you get on there, and I'm thinking about that, it's like, you go through Facebook and, all of a sudden you're challenged by everybody else and you're comparing your life to what these people are going through. How important is that to really put everything in perspective?
Yeah, it touches on a really important point because, everyone shares their perfect life on Facebook, largely.
Yes. Yes.
And it's the dream life, it's the restaurant, it's this. And they don't tell you the tough times. They really don't. Very few people do. And I think that one of the other important planks for me was really to practice gratitude and because what I've learned is that you have no idea, no matter how perfect someone's life looks, you have no idea what's going on behind their door in their home. There could be domestic violence. There could be money issues you don't know about. You have no idea. And so I think one of the really important things, and there's a lot of evidence to show this, is to write down every night 3 things you're grateful for, no matter what sort of day you've had. It could be just having a great cup of coffee. It could be, just having a walk at lunchtime in a lovely park. But consciously thinking of 3 things that are good for you. And that has been shown by research by Martin Seligman and similar, that can have a boost in mood. It just changes things by thinking about what's going right rather than what's going wrong.
It's interesting, and it's something that you discuss in Back from the Brink, True Stories and Practical Help for Overcoming Depression and Bipolar Disorder. Graeme Cowan, our guest on the program, is basically we are the master of our mood. We can set the pace. We can control basically what type of day we're going to have, and we can do it on our own. The negative we block out, and we focus on the positive.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be trite about this because this is something that my psychiatrist once sent to me, and when I was really depressed, I thought, "You're an idiot," and the facts are this, that our mood is determined by 3 things. It's determined by 50% is our genetics. And obviously we can't do anything about our genetics. Some people are just born more optimistic, more upbeat than others and more resilient. 10% is what happens in our life, but 40% is what they call intentional action, what we choose to do every day. And that's why we have choice over that. We have choice about whether we go for a walk. We have choice about whether we make time for a loved one. We have choice about, whether we do a hobby. And in my seminars, that's what I really focus on, that 40%, because, we do have things happen in our life. I talk about a moodometer from 0 to 10. And when things happen, it's natural for us to slide down. But we do have control about how quickly we return by doing things that nurture us, by doing things that boost our mood. And, mastering our mood might be the ultimate thing, but I certainly believe that it's within our control to manage our mood. And I'm very fortunate now to probably spend really 80% of my time in the green zone and right up the top end of the scale. And that makes all the difference.
Yeah, talk about a couple of minutes left in the program. Graeme Cowan, our guest on the program. I threw out there, master our mood, and that sounds like a bumper sticker, and he was able to explain how we actually go about implementing that. That's what I like about the book, Back from the Brink, because it takes concepts like that and it tells us how we actually can go about using those. Talk about the green zone and why that's so important, something that we should strive for.
Well, in the workplace, people who are in the green zone are 31% more productive, they sell 37% more, they're 300% more creative, and there's twice the levels of trust in the workplace. So they're pretty compelling reasons in the workplace to do that. In our own lives, I think we know intuitively that we are much better when we are in a positive mood. If we're going to have a session with our child or an important discussion with our spouse or partner, or we've got a conflict with a friend, being more upbeat gives us greater control, more EQ to do the things that are important. We're more grateful. We're in a better place. So that's why it is really important to go for the green zone. One of my bosses had a saying, when you're green, you grow, and when you're ripe, you rot. And, I think that's quite a good thing to keep in mind.
When we have Graeme back in the program, and we will, among the topics we'll be talking about is situations in the workplace. He's written a number of articles on that, one best practice in managing mental health in the workplace. A concept you talk about, and let's just touch on it about 30 seconds here. Presenteeism. We all know about absenteeism, but it's interesting. You actually could be physically at work and mentally going through issues like you were going through and really not there 100% being productive.
Yeah, well, that's one of the surprising things, Rick, is that the actual size of presenteeism, the cost of presenteeism estimated to be between 4 and 6 times the cost of absenteeism, people being away. So people could be at work, they could be just looking at the computer, going through things, but they're not really properly effective. And this is why I really stress that it's an essential thing for leaders to make a priority, because 34% of lost productivity is due to this area, absenteeism and presenteeism.
And it's interesting with absenteeism, we know someone's not there, so we're probably compensating during the course of their workday. Someone is filling in for them. Somebody is covering what they normally do. With presenteeism, we think they're there. We think they're being productive. We think they're doing what they're scheduled to do during the course of the day. And in many cases, that's not happening. It's an interesting concept, and we're going to be talking about that more on the program. Graeme Cowan is our guest on This Week in America. The book is an excellent one. It's Back from the Brink, True Stories and Practical Help for Overcoming Depression and Bipolar Disorder. His website, and a lot of great information available, as you can imagine, at the website. IamBackFromTheBrink.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly. You can sign up for his free 30-day mood challenge that we talked about during the course of the program. Graeme, it's been a pleasure having you on the program. Looking forward to having you back. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Rick. Lovely to be with you.
Once again, Graeme Cowan, our guest on the program, and information on Graeme and his book available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.